Hello and welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Tuesday, November 20th, 2018, and this is episode 80. My name is Carol and I'm known as Knits and Pearls on Ravelry. The show notes for this and every episode can be found on the blog and also in the episode thread in the Ravelry group. If you'd like to get in touch, please do so via private message on Ravelry, by leaving a comment on YouTube, or by leaving a comment in the group. And I guarantee I'll get back to you sooner or later. These days, I'm afraid it's later rather than sooner. Thanks for joining me today on what is a sunny day here in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, Canada. We've had a fair bit of rain lately, but we've had sun the last few days, and it's been very good for the spirit, I have to say. Thanks for everyone who has reached out to me in the past week. As I referred to, have been kind of behind on my correspondence, but I really appreciate all of your kind comments, especially those who offered your good wishes to our family after the loss of my great niece. One of my goals for today is to sit down and get back to all of you. So you should have received a response by the time this episode goes live, and if not, it will be shortly after. I know what you're thinking. It's like, didn't she just record an episode? How come we're seeing her again so soon? And the answer is, if I didn't record today, it wasn't going to happen this week. And I sort of looked around at what I had, decided I had enough material for an episode, and so here I am. I am all by myself till tomorrow night. My husband's away overnight with business, so I have the house to myself, and it doesn't matter how long it takes to edit this. I won't feel like I'm taking away from getting dinner ready or spending time with my husband, and so it's just seemed like the perfect time to sit down. I'm really going to miss him. I kind of realized that over the past 2 weeks we really have not been alone very much together, as we've had company, and then we spent the weekend on Vancouver Island with my husband's family, and the week ahead we're also going to be spending a lot of time with other people. I'm going out to lunch tomorrow with a friend, and then it's my grandson's 8th birthday tomorrow, and so we're going over to my daughter's place for a birthday dinner for him. And then my brother-in-law had stayed here a couple of weeks ago visiting a friend who was in hospice, and that friend has sadly passed away since, and so he's coming back Thursday afternoon to stay overnight for a couple nights and attend the funeral on Friday. And then I have a feeling I'm going to have my mom back here, but I'm not sure exactly when. She's kind of making the rounds of the various of her various daughters, and I think it's going to fall on me or maybe Cameron and I to get her home next week. I don't mind driving if there's no snow in the forecast where she lives, but I'm really not comfortable driving in snow. So if it's not the best weather on the way, my husband might take a day off work and we will zip her home. So, you know, I was thinking about this podcast, and I think it's going to follow a little bit of a different format. Things just seem to fit in more logically, chronologically, as opposed to the way I usually organize it. So I'm going to just kind of work my way through what's been going on and insert knitting and yarn acquisitions, reading, etc., kind of as I go along. 2 things I wanted to talk about first, though. The first is, let me think. Maybe I'll talk about what I'm wearing first. This is my Twigs and Willows cardigan by Ilana Dacos. It's from her first Botanical Knits book. Like I'm pretty sure it's the first one. It is made from Cascade 220 Heathers in this beautiful red. It's just color 2426. If it has a colorway name, I'm not sure what it is. I knit it way back in April 2013, and sadly, I don't wear it very often. In fact, hardly ever, and I think part of the reason it's a little bit itchy without a t-shirt on underneath or a top of some sort, but I find this neckline hard to wear with a lot of shirts, and also I don't have a lot of shirts that match it. So I'm going to stand a little bit so you can see. It's a round neck cardigan with this really nice, very understated leaf detail on the yoke. Other than that, it's just a plain cardigan. It has deep ribbing at the bottom, deep ribbing on the sleeves, and buttons up the front. Now I've grown a little since I made it, so I can still button it up, but it would be a little more gapey if I did. So that's not really the best look. So I've left it open, and it fits well within this particular neckline. I was looking at my project notes from this, and a couple of things that I mentioned in there were that I had made it soon after I had watched the Fit to Flatter or read the Knit to Flatter, or maybe it's the other way around. Amy Herzog has done a series of Fit to Flatter or Knit to Flatter videos and books, and has her own company that will adjust patterns to her format. And one of the things that I learned from her were to, for my figure type, move the waist shaping from the sides of a garment, because it gives it this look like this, and I am not very curvy, and so sweaters like that tend to flare out at my hem. And so I've moved the shaping to the front, and you do it about 25% of the way in from each side seam, and then on the back about a third of the way in from each side seam. And I really like how sweaters like this fit. That's how I do pretty well all my waist shaping now, and it's a much better look for me, for sure. I also mentioned that I did some buttonholes that I had learned about in a Craftsy class, and I think if I'm not mistaken, it was done by Anne Hansen. She did a really good Craftsy class on buttonholes and button bands, and discussed a lot of things about those. Now I'm not even sure, I read the notes really quickly, so I might be wrong about that, but in any case, I substituted a different buttonhole for the one that came in the pattern, and I made the sweater about 2 inches longer, but I generally lengthen sweaters because I do have a long torso. So it's kind of a shame I don't wear this more, because I love the color. Red's my favorite color, and actually it's a very flattering cardigan, I think. I just have to find more things to wear it with. The second thing I wanted to talk about, as I said, you wouldn't see these socks again after last week, but I decided to show them now that they're completely finished. So I showed you my Boo socks last week, and I said that the legs, the feet in particular, seemed a bit loose and a bit long, and I realized I had probably knit a little bit too far before I started the toes. So after I recorded last week, before I sat down to edit, I ripped back to where I had begun the toes, and I ripped back one more stripe. And originally I had begun them after this gray stripe, so I ripped back to where the gray stripe begins, and, or pardon me, is that right? Yes. Yes, mistaken. yeah. I ripped back to where the orange stripe ended, the gray one began, and I redid the toes on these, and you can see there's a lot less fabric because the toe or the leg because the foot is stretched out a little bit further, and so they definitely fit better now. So now they've been washed and blocked, and I'm much happier with the finished result. The yarn is from Sea Turtle Fiber, Arts, I think it's called. Let me just check. Yeah, can't talk today, but I'm carrying on. Sea Turtle Fiber Arts Ridley sock in the Streckles patterning, which is what she calls this kind of striping, and it's in the Boo colorway. So they're all ready for next year's Halloween because they didn't get done for this year's Halloween, but that's okay. Better late than never, I guess. This sweater seemed like a really good idea at the time. This morning it was cool and I welcomed the warmth, but I'm kind of cooking right now. It's about lunchtime. I've got some sun coming through the window there. So I'm going to go change to something a little bit cooler and I'll be right back to carry on. There, that's much better. Although knowing me, in a little while I'm going to get cold and then I'm going to want to put on a sweater, because that's just how it seems to go these days. In any case, as I mentioned, Cameron and I were away for a few days on Vancouver Island visiting his family. So he took Friday and Monday off, so we had an extra long weekend. So Friday morning he had some work done on his car, but we were able to get away about noon and made good time to the ferry terminal and actually got on the 2 o'clock ferry, which was really great. You never know how long it's going to take to get there, depending on traffic. And usually it can take up to a couple of hours. And B, you never know how busy the ferries are going to be, especially on a Friday afternoon / evening. So we were really lucky to get there and get on right on the next ferry. So of course I needed a knitting project for the car. I had finished my Boo socks and I needed a new pair of stockinette socks. So it's always a dilemma. What do you cast on next? There's so many beautiful yarns that I own, but I decided, with all this talk of the Gage Dyeworks Caterpillar green yarn, I decided to dive into a skein that Susan had so kindly gifted me. So it's the Caterpillar green yarns merino twist fingering in the classic striping in the Ocean Sunset colorway. There's yep, that's the right way up. So I wound it into 2 equal balls, and I think I cast them on Thursday night so they'd be ready to go, or maybe it might have been actually Friday morning, I don't know. And I'm not sure why I thought, here's the colors in the ball. And it goes from this kind of really fuchsia purple all the way down through these shades of kind of orange and gold and brown into shades of blue until it ends with this purple here. And I'm not sure why I decided to go the opposite direction, but I ended up actually casting on the purple first. And as I'm knitting them in the car, I'm thinking, no, if it's a sunset, I really should have the colors going from the lighter to the blue and the purple from the top down. It just seemed all wrong. So I ripped them out, tucked the socks in the middle of the ball, and started over from the outside. So I have got as far as the heels on both socks. So look how pretty is that. But I still have some more colors to do here. There's still kind of a marine brighter blue that comes after this one, and then this purple, and then it starts again at the fuchsia. I really didn't want to break up those colors along the sock, and so I have I've worked my way halfway through this next blue stripe, and I've put in a row of waste yarn, and when I get to the end, I'll decide what color I want to put in the heel here, and I'll do afterthought heels. So as I mentioned, I do have both socks done that far. So those are really pretty. It just fun seeing what each new stripe would bring. I didn't realize there were that many different colors in this yarn. So what does that work out to? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 stripes, I believe, if I've counted right, till you begin again. So that's been really holding my attention, as you might imagine, and I just think it's beautiful. So thanks again, Susan. I'm loving it, and look forward to continuing on these. Unfortunately, because as I was approaching the heels, and I didn't know if I would get there over the weekend, so when I did, I was really trying to think what to do with them, and I didn't have any waste yarn with me in order to do this, and so I had to wait till I got home. So I actually drove pretty well the full way home from the ferry yesterday with no knitting project. It just about killed me, because if we have long trips in the car, I always knit. But look how pretty, look how pretty. It's just going to be gorgeous. So because we were going to be staying Friday night and Saturday night with Cameron's brother and his wife, and they were still out of town. They were returning home Friday evening from being away for their granddaughter's service and being with their family the next province over, Alberta. And so we didn't want to get to their house before they did. We wanted them to get a chance to get in, get a few things settled before we arrived. And so we spent our time, once we got to Victoria, we went downtown, and I went to Beehive, which is Beehive Wool Shop. It's my favorite yarn shop in Victoria, one of my favorite yarn shops. And so one thing I was looking for in particular was yarn for my to make my son's girlfriend some fingerless mitts and a hat. So a couple of weeks ago, when I had all my extended family here for our fall birthday celebrations, I brought out a big box of knitwear that I didn't want anymore. I had gone through all my winter accessories and pulled out the ones I just wasn't wearing or didn't think I'd wear again. And I offered them up to whoever wanted them, and the box just went, which was great. I loved seeing the excitement and the little fashion shows that were going on, and I love knowing that all of those items are going to a good home and that they'll be used. So one of my nieces had picked up a pair of fingerless gloves and a hat that I had made years and years and years ago, and my son's girlfriend asked me, oh, do you still have that pattern? Or, you know, I knew she was really interested in them, so I decided right then and there that I would make her at the very least some fingerless gloves for Christmas. And then I thought I might as well do a hat to match too. So when I can't remember what day it was, but Helen Stewart's, a couple of her knit vent patterns got released on the same day, and they were the How Quiet mitts and How Quiet hat. And I decided to make those for Ray, is her name. And so I really wanted to find yarn specifically for her. Now she has this shade of purpley red that she just loves. And when I asked my son what color her coat was, I thought it might be that color. And I thought, well, if it's that color, I'll make something to complement it. But he said what she's wearing mostly these days is a black jacket. So I thought, perfect, I can make any color to match black. And he mentioned this color, and I said, that's what I was thinking of. I know it'll be a big hit. So I was looking for yarn to make this hat and mitts. I'll put a picture in here. I don't have the pattern with a photo printed off, so I'll put a picture here so that you can see what the set looks like. It calls for a DK weight yarn, and one of the first yarns I saw when I walked in was a DK from Mineville Wool Company, Wool Project. Mineville anyway, and it was a blend of purple and this burgundy red color that she really likes, but they only had one skein, and so I held on to it, and I thought at the very least I'll make her the gloves. or the mitts. But as it turned out, I saw some Cascade 220 that was the perfect color, and I decided to grab that instead. So this is the color. I don't know how it'll come up on the camera. It's pretty good, actually. It's yeah, that's fairly true. Maybe it looks a little bit brighter with the light on it. It is Cascade 220 Heathers, color 9642. No, 9542. I don't have my reading glasses on. Can you tell? And it, on Ravelry, it's labeled as crushed grapes. I looked on the Cascade website and didn't see it, so maybe it's a color they're not doing anymore, but I'm glad I was able to snag. I snagged 2 skeins just in case. And so when I got home yesterday, I spent the evening working on this project. So I cast on the first mitt, and once I was doing it, then I really wanted to finish it, so I ended up staying up till midnight, which probably wasn't the best idea, but I finished the first one last night. You can see it's a very simple pattern. I should mention, even though the pattern calls for DK weight, Cascade 220 tends to be a fairly light worsted, and I knew that as long as it fit, it didn't really matter what yarn I used to get me there. So I kept with the 3.5mm needles for the ribbing and switched to a 4 on the main part, which is what I would use with this yarn to get 5 stitches per inch, which is what the pattern was calling for. And I think it's dense enough for sure, and you can see it fits fine. And I don't have a large hand. That was one good thing, is Ray did take another pair of fingerless mitts that I had made, and so I knew that if those fit her, whatever I made to fit my hand would fit her. So that made it easy. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with how that turned out. And then this morning, well, I guess last night, oh, I know, I was watching a podcast and had a few minutes left, so I took that opportunity to cast on the second mitt. And then when I got up this morning and sat down with my tea and everything, I started the second one. And so this is, according to the pattern, 40% done. It is just started the increases for the thumb gusset. So yeah, so those should take me no time at all to finish up. And then the hat, if you from the pattern, you can see it incorporates this same stitch pattern. And so I had got that yarn, and I'd paid for that and my other yarn, and was getting ready to leave. And then I walked past this display of pom-poms and saw this one. Whoops, that one. I'll take it out of the box. It's from Wild Wild Wool, and it's called Aubergine is the color. Okay, this might take a second. It's a little tricky. And I'm not really a pom-pom person, and I don't know if Ray is either, but I just couldn't resist. It was just the perfect color, and I thought if she really hates it, I could take it off. Or more likely, she won't tell me she hates it, but I'm not sure if it's, maybe it's not as good a match on camera as it is in real life, but in real life it really picks up the deeper tones in the heathered yarn. Trust me, it matches. Here it kind of looks like maybe it doesn't, but it really does. So I'll sew that onto the hat after it's done. So yeah, that was an unexpected kind of bonus. While I was in the shop, that was the thing I really wanted to pick up. There was a shawl I had looked at online that I thought I might be able to find yarn for, but they didn't have anything for that. What I did notice is they had quite a large stock of hedgehog fibers in, both in the, I think it's skinny singles and the sock. And I had bought, quite a while ago, I had bought this skein of Monarch, and that looks very yellow, but it's actually very orange. And I had bought the birthday cake to go with it, and I think it was a couple of years ago I knit what I called birthday cake socks. So they were mainly purple, and then I had had done color work and put candles around the top in this color. They go very well together. Actually, that's a pretty good look at the proper color of the orange. So because I have so much left, I've had it in mind that it would be nice to find a matching skein and maybe do like a 3-color shawl or something with it. So I found 2. They had a skein of Monarch in stock. They did not have any birthday cakes, so I had to kind of go from memory on that color. But first, a woman, one of the store clerks pointed out to me this color. It's called Hawk. And she's like, how nice does that look? And I was like, that does look very nice together. Let's see if I can find where there's a lot of orange. So I had that out, and I had about 5 skeins, and I was trying to pick one I liked the most, and I tried to find one that had a fair bit of purple in it, so that if I had the purple to go with it, it would all kind of blend. But there was also this skein called Bramble that really looked nice next to this Monarch. And I picked one again that had a fair bit of pink or purple running through it so that it would match, which it does. So I don't know. I actually could probably put all 4 together in something, and that's a possibility. I don't know, but I like the idea that now I have options. And so one day these will become something in one form or another with these 2 yarns. So that I was really pleased to find, because that's been in the back of my mind for quite a while. And I was looking a little bit at Knit City, but I didn't have any Monarch there that I could, or birthday cake there that I could compare with other colorways. So it was nice to have that chance to kind of play with them. I just realized if you look at my Boo socks, what do I have? Purple, orange, gray. It's all kind of the same colors. Maybe I'll have to make a Halloween shawl. Another yarn that just caught my eye and I kept going back to it, and I decided to just bite the bullet, was this Malabrigo Arroyo in the Jupiter colorway, and I just thought that would just make a beautiful sweater. Again, red, my favorite color, and I had made a Dusty Rose out of Arroyo and really like how it knit up, really like how it turned out. And so I looked at that project and I used just shy of 3 skeins. So I bought 3, and well, it'll just have to do. I was able to get a long sleeved pullover out of that much yarn. Granted, the sleeves were lace, so it takes a little bit less yarn, but I could see myself even being able to do a 3/4 length or elbow length sleeved sweater out of this with this much yarn. I just really didn't want to purchase one more skein because it's fairly pricey, and I knew I wouldn't use a lot of it, and it just seemed a bit too much for a sweater for my budget, but I thought I could handle the 3. So again, I think it's a little bit deeper than might be showing up in the screen, but I love and can't wait to find a pattern to knit this with. So so those were my acquisitions, and then we went for dinner in this Irish pub downtown, and then headed over to my brother-in-law and sister-in-law's place. So they had just gotten home. And, you know, I wasn't sure. All week we'd sort of kept in mind that our plans would be, were temporary or dependent on them, really. We didn't want to impose on them at such a difficult time, but my brother-in-law had told Cameron, no, we really want you to come. And they said numerous times over the couple of days we were there, we're so glad you're here, we're so glad you came. And so I'm glad, even though we were just there, and I don't feel like we did anything, you know, special, or, you know, we didn't, we were just there, and I don't feel like we did anything, you know, special or, you know, we didn't, we were just there, and I don't feel like we did anything special or, you know, we didn't, we were just there, and I don't feel like we did anything remarkable. It obviously meant something to them to have us there. They didn't have to come home to an empty house. They had someone they could talk to who was a little more removed from the situation and be able to just let their grief come out, because it's going to be, it is and is going to continue to be incredibly difficult on them. If you're just joining me for the first time, my in-laws' 16-year-old granddaughter was killed about almost 2 weeks ago, was hit by a vehicle. The details are still unknown. They haven't had a police report, and it appears that the driver was proceeding on a green light, so she may have been crossing against the light, but they don't know that for sure. That's just what some witnesses have said, and so the details, you know, it doesn't really matter. It happened, and as I said, it's just going to be incredibly tough on them for the next while, and our hearts just break for them. We spent a good part of Saturday with my mother-in-law, took her out for lunch and took her for a long drive. It was sunny out, so it was nice along the water, very picturesque. And so, yeah, we got our visit in with her also. And then the next day, we headed up island. Cameron's younger brother and his wife have just recently moved back to Vancouver Island from here. And so we wanted to go see their new place. And so they live about 2.5 hours north of Victoria. So we headed up there. We stopped in a place called Nanaimo for lunch. Had Mexican food. It was really good. A little hot sauce helped to clear the sinuses. My husband was putting this stuff out, and it's like, you do realize that's like habanero sauce. Like, you might want to just take it a little bit easier than that. So he, it was spicy but good, he said. So funny, because probably 5 years ago he wouldn't have touched spicy food, and he's come a long way since then, trying new things and finding out that some things really are delicious, like Caesar salad and garlic bread. All that aside, we had a nice visit with my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, and headed home yesterday. And it was foggy. We drove out of the sunshine into the fog on the way to their place, and woke up to fog and expected to kind of drive out of it again, but actually it was foggy all the way across on the ferry till just before we reached the mainland. So don't know if we've ever come across on the ferry in the fog before. For all these years we've been going back and forth. It was kind of weird, because you could hardly see the water beside you, let alone any islands or any ocean beyond that. At one point they made an announcement that there was a group of dolphins. I don't know what you call a group. Pod. I know it's a pod of whales, but anyway, a group of dolphins off the port side at the front, and we all kind of laughed, like, how are we supposed to expect to see them? You could hardly see 10 feet off the ship. Anyway, had a long trip home. Took us like a good 2 hours. So it was a good weekend. The timing was really good, I guess, is what it worked out to. Is the best thing to say about it. We were able to spend time with family at a time that was particularly welcome. And so, yeah, so that was good. I have been reading, actually, again, long ferry trips and stuff, waiting in line, 'cause we had to wait in line for about, I think, over an hour on our way home. So I did get some reading done. I finished these Happy Golden Years before I left, because I think I showed last week I only had a little couple chapters left to read. So I finished that. And then I started The First 4 Years. This is a novel that was found among Laura Ingalls Wilder's possessions after she died, or it might have been with her daughter's possessions. In any case, it was never published, and this was her I guess, attempt at an adult novel, and documenting the first 4 years of her marriage and the happy times, but a lot of struggles that she and her husband went through as they began homesteading. So they had hailstorm destroy their first crop of wheat, and they had suffered hot, dry summers that stunted the growth of the wheat, ruined the wheat and oat crops, and cyclone, fire, their house burned down. A lot of debt. So it's actually a really it ends on an optimistic note, but at the same time, wow, what a tough go they had their first 4 years of marriage, and after that too, illness also, and they lost a baby son. So not a happy time for them, and maybe that's why she never did go back to it and publish it. But it's interesting for those who've read the Little House series to sort of see what happened after they got married. And then I had bought this book when I was in De Smet. It's called Laura Ingalls Wilder's Little Town by John E. Miller, who has written a number of articles and books about Laura Ingalls Wilder. He lived about, I don't know if he still does, about 40 miles from De Smet, and grew up, I think, or at least spent some time not that far away from where she had moved to in Missouri also. And so the subtitle is Where History and Literature Meet, and that's the subject of the book, is that we know a lot about this little town on the prairie because Laura wrote about it, and it's also discusses how you have to take the fictional part and separate it from the fact. The sense that she didn't include everything about the town because they weren't important to her 18-year-old or teenage character. I shouldn't say 18-year-old, if she was a range of ages during the time that the books are set here, the novels are set here. But it does, because of her books, this little town on the prairie is much more is known about the history and the fabric of the town, the characters in it, or people living there, I guess is probably a better way to put it. Although Laura Ingalls Wilder did fictionalize some characters or take some characters and they were composites of several people that she knew. So I guess the whole point is that her novels don't give a verbatim accurate account of exactly what the town of De Smet was like at the time when she lived there, but it does definitely flesh out somewhat, a person's understanding and knowledge of what did happen there, because the fiction brings attention to it and provides some detail that may not be found in a newspaper, for instance. Hope I've done a fair summing up of that. Anyway, I'm about, not quite halfway through. It's interesting. I wouldn't say it's riveting, but it is interesting. And it just adds another layer of understanding to my knowledge of Laura Ingalls Wilder. Our new perspective, I guess. I'm just going to see if there's anything else that I wanted to talk about. Two things. Yes, there is something else. Gage Dye Works. Speaking of Gage Dye Works, so those who have been watching know that I am offering this skein of the shawl striping MCN in 170 grams shade. Let's try that again. 170 gram skein of this self-striping shawl yarn from Gage Dye Works in the April Showers colorway. I am going to draw for the winner. I'm going to close the thread in the Ravelry group and draw for the winner just before I record my first podcast in December. Might be next week, might be the week after. Again, my life, kind of up in the air right now. There's lots of comings and goings. I have opened a thread in the Ravelry group. Here's where you can find it. Search for A Stitch in Time podcast under the groups tab, or there's a link to it on the sorry guys, link to it on the show notes page on the blog. So follow that address, find us, please find it, and tell me something positive about rain. April showers bring May flowers, so that's a good byproduct of rain. It's cozy to stay indoors on a rainy day. That's something good about rain. I've so enjoyed hearing all of the different comments that you've made so far. Rain can be a lovely thing, can't it? Especially in a hot, dry summer. You know, we love it. During a long, dreary winter, maybe not so much. So it's good to look on the bright side. That's my philosophy. And okay, I lied. I had 3 more things to talk about. The next thing is, how do you feel about having an Advent knit along, crochet along this year? So last year I did Vlogmas, and I recorded a little video episode every day in the days leading up to Christmas, and that was a lot of fun. Don't know if I'm going to do it this year. We'll see what life throws me. But one of the things I was doing during that time was knitting the Land of Sweets cowl by Helen Stewart, and I had picked out 24 different leftovers of fingering weight yarn, and I added a little bit every day and shared my progress with you. So I think it was last year that Amba O'Brien published her Adventurous wrap, and I'd really like to do that this year. And so I'm just wondering, there are quite a few different Advent projects out there now. It seems to be a thing. I know Helen Stewart's, one of her Advent or Knitvent 2018 patterns is a long wrap that uses, I think, 24 mini skeins. There's lots of other ones. I would assume you could just look for Advent in the search bar on Ravelry. I haven't done it, but I'm assuming. So let me know what you think. I think it would be fun to just kind of knit along or crochet along together. We wouldn't have to share our progress every day. That's probably unrealistic, but it might be fun just as a way of having some conversation in the group. And I always love seeing your projects. So let me know what you think. I think it would be fun to do that. And I can probably rustle up a prize for that. Don't know what that'll be yet. It's just kind of something I thought of in the last day or two. I haven't worked out any details, but I'd love to know what you think. And so let me know. And if there's enough interest, then let's do that. And then my final thing is I want to talk about something good. This is my new segment in which I talk about something good so we can end each week's episode on a positive note. So this week's something good is Rogers Chocolates. Rogers Chocolates is a Victorian chocolate company, as in it's located in Victoria, British Columbia. And it was started back in 1885 by Charles Rogers. He had come from San Francisco and opened a greengrocer's and used to import chocolates from San Francisco. And his customers snatched them up. This is all according to their website. And so he decided to go into the confectionery business himself. And his first invention was the Victoria Cream. I love Rogers Chocolates. Not every time, but most times that I go to Victoria, I try and pick some up. And if someone from Victoria, one of my in-laws, has my name on their Christmas list, I will put it on my Christmas list. This year my mother-in-law has my name, and so definitely Rogers Chocolates are going on the wish list. Victoria Cream is just basically a cream-filled chocolate. They're very large. I do not eat them in one sitting. I love chocolate, but I can only take a little bit at a time. which is probably a good thing. So I cut these large ones in 4. You can see I've done that. And I've had one after dinner last night. So this is a chocolate cream. This one's a raspberry cream. I actually limited myself to only 2 this weekend. But I do love me some Rogers chocolates. I'm sure, oh, I should say I'm sure they ship. They actually are available here on the mainland in some stores, but I don't buy them over here. I only buy them in Victoria. Just my little treat. So that brings this week's episode to a close. Thank you, as always, for joining me. I appreciate that you take the time to watch. I'm not sure when I'll be recording again. It really depends on life, and these days it's been kind of unpredictable. So I will see you when I see you. Until then, I hope you have time at this busy time of year to enjoy some of the things that you love doing, like your knitting, sewing, crafting, reading. So take care, and I will see you soon. Bye now.